the ball does seem to get up in the air really nicely. You notice a sort of subtle progression through the Apex franchise. Anyone could mix and match these irons. Hello everyone, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly and welcome to West Hill Golf Club. And this video looking at the new Callaway Apex 21 irons. I've got 4 different models in my hands. There's the Apex MB, the Apex Pro, the standard Apex and the Apex DCB, which stands for Deep Cavity Back. And I think many people watching this video will be familiar with the Apex franchise, and they've been very popular over the years because they've always offered that sort of blend of forgiveness and feel that so many golfers are after in terms of an all-round iron. The question is, when Callaway launch a new model or models into this franchise with new technologies, are they in danger of actually taking something away from what's made them so popular? That's what we're going to find out in this video. Now, I'm not actually going to hit the Apex MB as part of this particular test. I have already hit it and I'll show you the numbers below, but there are 2 reasons I'm not going to compare them with the other 3 irons in the range today. Firstly, they are the most blade-like. I think they're probably destined for really, really low handicappers and the tour. And secondly, they sent it to me in a 6 iron. So whilst the lofts might be comparable, the shaft lengths aren't. So I don't think it's sort of an even comparison between the Apex MB and the others. So I think I'll focus on the other 3. Okay, so I have already hit all of these irons on a launch monitor, and I will show you the data for those irons later in the video. But I'm going to start by hitting a few shots outside because I want to talk about the sound and the feel, the ball flight and the looks, because I think those are the elements that really are so important with any Apex franchise. And I'm going to start with the Apex Pro. And what do you think of the shelf appeal of this iron? I think this is absolutely stunning. I think for me, it strikes a great balance between looking quite high tech and yet also looking really traditional and really appealing. So great in the bag, great on the shelf. I know that of the 3 Apex irons I'm going to hit here, this would probably be the one in terms of the shelf appeal I'd love to be able to play. The question is, does it offer me enough performance? And when you put it behind the ball, it's quite compact from heel to toe, but it's got a lovely rounded shape. It's sort of a classic Callaway look down behind the ball. The top line is thin, but not too thin, not too intimidating. Right, let's hit a few shots and see how we get on. Yeah, it feels great. Now, obviously, this has the most traditional 7-iron loft of the Apex irons I'm testing. And the ball does seem to get up in the air really nicely. I mean, that just feels beautiful, gets through the turf exactly how you'd hope it would do. And just from what I'm looking at there, it doesn't look like it's going to be short, but we'll find out from the data later in the video. Yeah, these are, as you'd expect them, they feel superb. And they're not striking a huge amount of intimidation into me. I'm a 5 handicap golfer and I can get intimidated by really thin top lines and quite compact heads, but this isn't too bad. And I think that's because I'm looking down on a reasonable amount of loft at address. So I'm going to move on to the standard Apex, and there is a bit of a jump here in terms of the static loft. So you go from 33 degrees in the Apex Pro 7 iron down to 30.5 in the Apex. Now, what do you think of the shelf appeal in comparison to the Apex Pro? I still think these look great. I would lean towards the Apex Pro, but I think that Callaway have done a good job of kind of hinting at the fact that there's kind of more going on with this iron in terms of the shelf appeal. Then you put it down behind the ball, that top line gets progressively slightly thicker, a little bit more offset down behind the ball, but still, generally speaking, quite a compact shape. So nicely rounded toe. I like the way that it sits down behind the ball at address. Possibly, I think there's possibly a slightly hotter impact sound. It's not drastically different, I wouldn't say, but there is for me, a slightly hotter, firmer feel through the ball. And I mean, if I didn't know about the lofts, I would have said that the lofts were the same because the ball flight looks pretty much identical for me between the Apex Pro and the Apex. So obviously Callaway are doing some good work in terms of getting that launch up, it would seem, from what I'm seeing here. I mean, I've absolutely middled that, and that's gone off like a rocket. It's got through the turf really nicely. I mean, I can see from that shot there that there's good distance on offer here with this iron. So let's hit some shots now with the last of the 3 irons, the deep cavity back version, DCB. And again, I think as soon as you put it down, you notice a sort of subtle progression through the Apex franchise. So you go from the Apex Pro into the Apex and then the DCB. Top lines get a little bit thicker, a little bit more offset, but I'd say even the DCB is a fairly compact iron in terms of the blade, the sort of the gap between the heel and the toe. It's not like you jump up into what looks like a super game improvement iron. These still look pretty sleek down behind the ball. They just have that slightly thicker look that I think players who want more forgiveness, want perhaps more distance, are probably going to enjoy. But let's see how they sound and how the ball flies. I mean, all 3 irons do seem to get through the turf really nicely. Again, it's hard for me to pick any differences in terms of the ball flight. Now that one, I don't know if you picked that up on the camera, that felt a little bit hotter still off the face. That one looked like it went quite a long way as well. So let me hit one more. Lovely. I mean, so in terms of the looks and the feel, I have to say that the Apex Pro, you know, naturally it probably would be my favourite, but as you go up through the irons, you're not giving up too much in terms of looks and feel. So, I mean, it will be really interesting to see just how these 3 performed on the launch monitor. Okay, so here is the launch data for these 3 Callaway Apex irons. I'm not going to go through it line by line. If you do want to take a look at that data, please do hit the pause button, but I will talk about it in general terms. And as you can see, I think the performance is as Callaway says it should be. So from the traditional lofted Apex Pro, lovely flight, lovely sound and feel, more traditional overall performance. So for me, carrying 163, and then as you progress up into the standard Apex and then onto the Apex DCB, the ball speeds went up slightly, the launch angle came down a fraction but not much, the spin also came down, but the overall distances go up, and they sort of perform both on the launch monitor and out here exactly in the way that you would expect them to. So I think that really cuts to why the Callaway Apex 21 irons are so good. I think anyone could mix and match these irons to have something in the shorter irons and then a different model in the longer irons, and they would feel nicely progressive. They'd sort of blend in nicely with each other, and you get performance benefits at both ends of the bag. So there you have it. What do you think of the Callaway Apex irons for 2021? Please do leave some comments below. And have you played Apex irons in the past? If so, let us know how you got on with them. We'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. If it was my decision, I think I would go with the Apex Pro, just because I just love the way they look and love the way they feel. And there is a good element of forgiveness here as well. But I'd probably move into the standard Apex towards the top end of the bag. I think if you are interested, whichever way you go, you're going to get something that offers really good premium performance. But I do think you're going to need to think quite hard about the combination, about the setup you go for to make sure that you get the best out of them, because I do think there's great performance on offer within these Callaway Apex irons for 2021. Guys, that's it for now. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.